Hey, welcome back to the Six Figure Mastermind. Marianne DeNovellis here. Today we're talking about first impressions. You know how many decisions you make when you meet someone for the first time. Let's have a little more control on what it is when you're across the table. So, how do we make a good first impression? As human beings, we make over 35,000 decisions a day. And I read that somewhere. I'm pretty sure that's pretty close to accurate when you consider, like, do I want ketchup or not? Do I want to wear this ring or not? Do I want to take a shower or not? We make so many decisions every day, and so many of those are concentrated on the person in front of us when we meet someone new. And when someone meets you, guess what? They're making the same number of decisions about you. So how do we make sure they're good ones? Well, first things first, I just want to talk to you about this study that I read about. I was watching this show on Netflix called Brain Games, and this show was like super fascinating. I'm one of those people that likes the 3D image pop brain puzzles and the brain teasers, and I play Sudoku for fun. It's something weird that I do. But this brain game show was talking about the correlation between someone's trustworthy face and their success in life. And what they did is they had all of these pictures of people's faces up on the screen, and they had you pick which ones seemed most trustworthy, and then they had the audience, pre-recorded that had picked theirs. And most of the time they matched what was going on live. Generally, as a human being, you would pick the same one that the studio audience had picked. And the fascinating thing was, the person that they picked, they didn't tell us what they were picking from, but they were actually taking a pick from a selection of candidates for office. And most of the time, I think it was 95% of the time, the same one that we picked just on impulse, not knowing their stance on any policy, not knowing their history, not knowing anything about this person other than just their face, 90 to 95% of the time, the person that was picked as the most trustworthy just by their image was also the one that ran and won the office, whatever office they were running for. It was city council, whatever it may be. We so often make snap decisions based on what we can see in a first impression. And even if it's, just a photograph. Now, when you're meeting someone person to person, it's a little bit different because you have more decisions to make. You can judge based on their tone. You can decide things based on their voice and their personality and the way they move and their body language. And all of these things come together to determine whether or not you have a good first impression. Now, if you go to the Limitless TV channel, you see a video that I made about the science of smiling. If you want to make a great first impression, study that video and learn why smiling is so important. Even if you're making a first impression over the phone, which I do constantly in my line of work, I make sure that my face has a smile on it, even and especially when I'm over the phone. People can tell. People can totally tell if you're smiling over the phone. And if you're happy to be with someone, that's always going to leave a good first impression. Okay, there was some research done at the National Center for Biotechnology Information. That's a big, long one. The National Center for Biotechnology Information. There was a study done that I looked up. It was super fascinating. And in this study, it was a social cognitive affective neuroscience study. Lots of big, long words, just simply to say that they evaluated face trustworthiness. And in fact, there's a link that'll be in the comments that we can send to you that shows the research from this study. It's a really fascinating read. But they said, and they showed, that a lot of the trustworthiness followed right along with this brain games technique, that so much comes down not only to the shape of the face, but the behavior of the face. And just take a look at it. If you and I have a first impression, or you see me for the first time, and I have a classic RBF, and I won't tell you what that means, but I think you know. RBF is resting face that's not very nice. So, this face that's sarcastic or the. I used to be asked all the time, Marianne, are you okay? Is something wrong? And I'd just be like, no, this is just my face. What? And I actually learned this lesson from my husband because he had the same syndrome as I did. It's not a real syndrome. It's just a fun, trendy word that got made up. But he had the same resting face that I did. And he said, I was looking in the mirror and I studied that, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to change that. And he consciously would raise his ears and raise his eyebrows at rest. Now just watch what happens. I've got this normal face. Watch what happens when I raise my eyebrows. A little bit of a head tilt happened there too. When I raise my eyebrows, that conveys interest. And when you meet someone and they're interested in you, it'll establish a level of trust. So if you raise your eyebrows in interest to someone, that actually establishes a good first impression, because the most interesting thing to you, believe it or not, is you. And if someone has that same interest in you, that gives a good first impression. So if you want to leave a good first impression, raise those eyebrows. Okay, be interested. Have your attention be on them. Eye contact is another one. When I used to work at a bookstore, we would go around and we would train on how to make a good first impression, help people feel welcome in the bookstore, help people find what they needed, and help them feel comfortable there. And one of the things that our instructors taught us is to maintain that eye contact. So much so that you studied the person's eyes so that you remembered what color they were. Make a conscious effort to know the color of the person's eyes that's across from you. And when you have that eye contact, it also leaves a first impression because, again, you're showing interest in the other person. So, don't be creepy about it. Like, don't just stare at them. Like, practice in the mirror. Make sure you're making a face that's very approachable. So raising eyebrows, having great eye contact, pay attention. Just pay attention, using as many senses as you can. That the sense of hearing, the sense of sight. Even if you're, having a conversation that's close with another person, you can even take their hand if you know the person, and just convey that interest. A first impression probably won't include hand holding, so maybe stay away from that, but be interested and show that person that you are fully engaged in that conversation. Another thing to think about when you're talking about first impression, we've talked about the face, we've talked about a little bit about the tone, about being interested in that person and being kind and enunciating. You want to make sure you speak clearly and properly, but you also leave an impression, not just with your face and everything that goes on here, but top to bottom. People are making snap decisions about you within the first half to 7 seconds, the first 0.5 seconds to the first 7 seconds. They're making all kinds of decisions about you. They're judging you based on, guys, I know we don't like to admit that we judge a book by its cover, but we do. You judged a book by its cover when you came to this channel. You decided whether or not my face was one you wanted to look at for a few minutes or not. You decided whether this banner was a good one you wanted to look at. You decide what to watch on YouTube videos by their thumbnails and based on the content. You're making snap decisions like this all the time. So why should we be surprised when we make decisions like this based on people that we interact with and see for the first time? I don't know what it is, but I have a lot of people give me the feedback that their first impression of me was that they were scared of me. I don't understand it, and I'm trying to so that I don't give off that first impression. Guys, I'm 5'3". I'm small. I'm like this little pixie of a lady, but apparently there's something about me in the way I show up that for some people can be a little bit intimidating. So I'm taking that as personal feedback from me and saying, what am I doing that's giving that off? Do I want to give off that impression? Now, I can't go in anyone's mind and re-hardwire it and tell them what to think or what to feel, but I certainly can be aware of how I'm showing up. I can certainly be aware of how I'm communicating. I can certainly be aware of how I dress. I can certainly be aware of what I want to convey, because like it or not, people are going to decide things about you and make judgment calls based on the first milliseconds they interact with you. It's just the way it is. So if you want them to know who you truly are, be who you truly are. Dress who you truly are. Do your hair how you truly are. Look at your face as you truly are. Spend some time in front of the mirror giving yourself a handshake. Practice this first impression. If you want to give it off a good one, you've got to know what you're giving. So practice it in front of the mirror. Spend some time with that. I'm like totally serious about this. I got to tell you what, I tell this to people all the time in my classes and in my courses. Stand in front of the mirror. Look in the mirror and speak. Look in the mirror and introduce yourself. And look in the mirror and practice accepting money for your services. I tell people this all the time, and such a small percentage of people do it. I would say maybe 4 to 10% of the people I share this with actually do it. Be one of those 4 to 10%ers, actually try it, and then watch your results explode. If you want to have a 6-figure mastermind and see that income, you've got to leave a first impression, and you've got to know what that looks like. Okay, awesome. So I'm curious. I want to hear about your most awkward first impression moments. I want to see them in the comments. So hit the subscribe button and tell me all about it.